In every generation, there comes a moment when a nation stands at a crossroads, confused, conflicted, and uncertain of the path ahead. It is in these moments that true leadership is tested. Not the easy kind of leadership that comes with applause and agreement, but the gritty kind that demands courage, empathy, patience, and vision. The kind of leadership that can pull a fractured people back together again. This is the story of such a leader. A man who rose from the quiet hum of rural life to carry the weight of a divided nation on his shoulders. A leader who believed not in the conquest of enemies, but in the reconciliation of brothers. A leader inspired by one of history's greatest unifiers, Abraham Lincoln. Our story begins in a land where division had become a way of life. Political arguments had turned into personal grudges. Regions no longer trusted each other. Families stopped sharing meals because they couldn't even share opinions. The nation's identity, once a proud banner, had been torn into fragments of us and them. People were no longer seeing neighbors, they were seeing opponents. No one trusted the other side, and no one believed unity was even possible anymore. The news predicted collapse. The people predicted chaos. The world predicted failure. In the middle of this rising storm lived a man named Elias Rowan. Elias was not born into power. He was not wealthy. He was not from a famous family. He grew up in a wooden farmhouse with creaky floors, surrounded by wheat fields that stretched to the horizon. He learned early what it meant to work with one's hands, plowing fields, fixing fences, and splitting wood at dawn, just as a certain tall, lanky young man named Abraham Lincoln once did on the frontiers of Kentucky and Illinois. Like Lincoln, Elias learned that humility was not weakness, and simplicity was not ignorance. He learned that every person, no matter how small their role in society, held a piece of the nation's soul. As Elias grew, he read constantly. Books about freedom, justice, human dignity, and sacrifice. But above all, he kept returning to the life of Lincoln, the man who faced the greatest division a nation could endure, yet never allowed bitterness to harden his heart. Lincoln, who carried grief, loss, and pressure that would have broken most men, yet refused to stop believing in union. Lincoln, who said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Those words stayed with Elias like a compass in the wilderness. Years passed. Elias became a teacher, then a lawyer, then a community leader. He wasn't charismatic in the flashy sense. He didn't shout or demand attention. He spoke gently, but his gentleness carried strength. People listened because they trusted him. They could feel he meant every word he said. In a world full of noise, he became a voice people leaned in to hear. Eventually, as the nation's internal divisions worsened, Elias found himself urged by the people to step into national leadership. He didn't seek power, power sought him. And after much hesitation, prayer, and reflection on the example of Abraham Lincoln, he accepted the call. The moment Elias took office, he inherited a nation already halfway broken. Some states wanted to separate entirely. Others demanded force. Protests filled the streets. Newspapers painted him as inexperienced. Critics mocked his calm demeanor. Extremists on both sides accused him of favoring the other. And above all, the people were losing hope. But where others saw irreparable cracks, Elias saw the opportunity to build an even stronger foundation. He began by listening. Truly listening. He traveled from region to region, sitting not in grand halls but in simple meeting rooms, church basements, markets, farms, and community centers. He listened to businessmen, laborers, activists, elders, students, skeptics, and even those who openly admitted they disliked him. He refused to argue. He asked questions. He sought to understand their fears, their dreams, their frustrations. Just like Lincoln, who filled his cabinet with those who disagreed with him so he could learn from every angle, Elias surrounded himself with a team of rivals. People who challenged his thinking and sharpened his resolve. Slowly, the nation saw something different. A leader who didn't divide to win. A leader who didn't blame. A leader who didn't rule, he served. Then came the darkest moment of all, a violent clash between opposing groups in one of the nation's major cities. The nation trembled. Political leaders demanded retaliation. Advisors insisted he choose a side. The people waited anxiously to see what Elias would do. And in that moment, Elias made the decision that defined his legacy. He stepped into the conflict not with soldiers, not with threats, not with fury, but with compassion. He walked into the heart of the chaos, speaking to both sides, urging calm, urging reason. His voice was steady, not shaking with fear or anger, but resonating with something deeper, sincerity that cut through the noise. He stood between the two angry crowds, unarmed, and said, "A nation is not healed by proving who is right, but by understanding why we hurt." Silence fell. For the first time in years, people heard not an argument but a truth. A truth that touched their conscience. It was the same spirit Lincoln carried when he said, "I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true." Elias wasn't trying to win the moment. He was trying to heal a nation. After that day, things didn't change overnight. Healing never happens overnight. But the people began to reconsider their positions. Conversations replaced confrontations. Leaders from different regions began meeting again. Gradually, trust, fragile and shaky at first, began to rebuild. Elias introduced reforms rooted not in punishment, but in fairness. He launched nationwide programs encouraging dialogue between divided groups. He invested in education, reminding young people that unity was not just political, it was personal. He held public addresses where he spoke not to the left or right, but to the soul of the nation. He reminded them of their shared history, of the sacrifices their ancestors made, of the dreams that once bound them together. And slowly, like the rising sun after a long storm, unity began to return. Not because everyone agreed, but because everyone remembered they belonged to the same country. Elias often quoted Lincoln's words, "With malice toward none, with charity for all." He lived by them daily. Years later, historians would look back and write that Elias Rowan did not save the nation by force, but by faith in people's ability to change, to listen, to understand, and to reconcile. The nation did not just become united again, it became stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Elias lived to see his country flourish. And when he retired, he said something that echoed from one generation to the next: unity is not a gift leaders give a nation. It is the gift a nation gives itself when it chooses to see each other as family. The story of Elias Rowan reminds us today, no matter where we are, no matter how divided our communities, workplaces, families, or nations may seem, that unity is always possible. It begins with one courageous person who chooses understanding over anger, patience over pride, and compassion over conflict. One person who believes that bridges can still be built, even above the deepest divides. Just like Abraham Lincoln did. Just like Elias Rowan did. Just like you can. So if you're listening to this today, let this story inspire you to be that kind of leader, whether in your home, your school, your workplace, your community, or your country. True leadership is not about titles. It is about influence. It is about example. It is about sacrifice. And above all, it is about love for the people you serve. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your actions. Never underestimate the power of calm in chaos. Never underestimate the impact of empathy in a world starved for understanding. You too can unite the people around you. You too can be the voice that turns conflict into conversation. You too can be the leader who heals the divide. And as always, if this story moved you, inspired you, or opened your eyes, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. By supporting stories like this, you help spread messages of hope, unity, and healing to the world. Thank you for watching, and keep believing in the power of leadership that unites, uplifts, and transforms.